grant, which we now request. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, Gorge Telecom.
Good evening. After 5 years, I'm sure you recognize me as the good cop from the Gorge Telecom Community Association. But for the record, officially, of course, I'm Chris Gask. I'm the treasurer of the Gorge Telecom Community Association and the chair of the Gorge Canada Day Picnic Committee. So we're in year 18 of this event, this major Saanich Summer Festival. And I'd like to thank you very sincerely and all of Saanich for all the past support, especially the significant support of parks and recreation, the police, the fire department, and public works. They all do quite a bit of work during the day and beforehand to help us out. You all know the event, so I'm not going to tell you what happens at it, but I will give you some numbers this year of within the event. 20 to 25 Gorge on Art artists are coming each year. We have about 60 artisan market vendors, and we've actually implemented a new procedure this year for them to pre-register because it's becoming almost too successful. 25 to 30 food vendors, 4 stages now for entertainment, and we think 10 to 12,000 plus attendees coming for this day. We're a bit of victims of our own success. I think I might have mentioned last year that we had some issues rising with recycling and waste, and we think we've solved that by creating stations along the way. The people that we pay to pick up stuff during the day work very, very hard all day. So we've got more of them. I've shifted the budget a little bit to pay a little bit more for the recycling infrastructure and the logistics and recycling team. One thing we did last year was get L'École Brochure students and hire them for the day, which worked out pretty well. So Saanich has always been a very key supporter of this event, and we thank you again for this fantastic community event in Saanich.
Thank you. Any questions?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Up next is Friends of the Ashton Garrison Museum.
Mayor Atwell, councillors, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to address our application for a community grant. I'm Doug Braun, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Friends of the Ashton Garrison Museum.
Hello again.
Good day. Thanks for coming up. The Ashton Armory Museum is located in the Lieutenant General Ashton Armories on Van Almen Avenue, what some of you may know as the old Grey Bottling Plant, or just past the Sears Warehouse. Museum is an official Canadian Forces museum with a mission to preserve and present Canadian military history as it pertains to service support units, which are transport, maintenance, supply, medical, and so forth. Museum focuses on local units and local residents. It's open to the public 3 mornings a week. D&D does provide the space in the building and the infrastructure and some equipment support, and that's about it. The Friends of the Ashton Armory Museum is a registered society with a mandate to support the museum with volunteer and financial assistance. Last year, our volunteers contributed over 5,000 hours in support to the museum. We participate in many local parades, as shown on the calendar we submitted, including the Heritage Acres events, as well as the Saanich or Remembrance Day ceremonies. We're the guys in all the old trucks in the back. So far this year, we've had 371 visitors to our museum. We participated in the Wounded Warriors program, and we'll be involved with 11 Field Ambulance Freedom of the City of Saanich celebrations this weekend. Last weekend, we participated in Tourist in Your Own Hometown, which brought many visitors to Saanich, many stating that they didn't know there was an armory there. As you can imagine, an operation such as this requires considerable financial support. It's very expensive to keep our fleet of vintage vehicles operating. If anyone has had their car repaired lately, you know what it costs. Imagine trying to maintain a 70-year-old truck. Canadian Tire doesn't exactly carry parts on the shelf. We have to make a lot of parts ourselves. So, very expensive. Our other expenses include parts, fuel, repairs, vehicle insurance, towing, period uniforms, liability insurance, and training for our volunteers. We currently have 2 vehicles that are being completely restored, both 1950 vintage. So our society depends primarily on donations, grants, and some sales of surplus equipment and artifacts that we get. Last year we had an issue with our BC Gaming Grant application due to some confusion on my part of the new online procedures, but we resolved that and we finally did get a grant in October. Last fall, as the mayor said, we invited the mayor and council to visit our museum. It was the first visit for a lot of them to the museum, and we invite you all to come down to the museum. It was at that time that I discovered the availability of a community grant from Saanich, so I was encouraged to submit an application. So any funds that we do get from the museum would help our normal operating costs and keep us going. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Councillor Platt?
Thank you. I'm looking forward to going there one day. I'm just curious, on your balance sheet, you indicate that you're committed, 13,000 committed funds. I'm wondering what project you're undertaking, because you did seem to post a surplus last year.
The reason we have the surplus is it took us till October to get our gaming grant. Normally the grants would come out in the spring and we would have the majority of it spent by the end of our fiscal year. But last year, with the delay, we didn't get it until October. So to get things back on track that we had put on the back burner because of lack of funds, that's why we have the committed funds to do normal maintenance, the refurbishing, things like that. Last year, we weren't able to send any of our members on the National Training Conference for military museums. This year, we hope to send 2 more members to the National Conference and Training.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Berman?
Thank you very much. I was down there a month ago, and it's an interesting place. I've never been there before. And you said something tonight that it's open to the public 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And the question I'd ask, is the public aware that it is open 3 days a week, and how do we communicate that?
We're hoping to get more and more word on the street. We have a website that's just being developed right now. We're hoping to get the highway signs, which will include museums. But first we have to get accredited by the BC Museum Society to get the highway sign out there. And just through publicity and advertising. That's one of the reasons we signed up for the Tourist in Your Own Hometown, was that we had 270 people, I think, in, and most of them didn't know there was a museum, an armory's there to start with, or a museum. So.
Thank you very much.
No questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next again, I've got this at the Fortress Foundation.
So quick. So there was lots of statistics shared tonight, and I want to share one with you. The one statistic I'd like to share is that 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual violence, assault, domestic abuse, something along those lines. And that's a horrific number. We need to do something about that. Again, Joel from the Fortress Foundation here to present how we are committed to ending exploitation and gender-based violence in all its forms. We have an additional request for another program that we run called the Men End Exploitation Program, in partnership with the local universities and colleges to strengthen the response to sexual assault on their campuses. It's a very rampant problem, as we know, and there are lots of local universities and colleges doing things to address this problem. So we wanted to just I wanted to highlight a few of those things to see what we are doing, but the problem is still rampant, so we need to do more, is the thing. So Camosun College has no official policy on sexual assault. They're working on one. They do have walk-along programs, escorts around campus, to and from cars. They have annual training from Project Consent on healthy sexuality. UVic is a very progressive campus, and so they should be on this subject matter. Next month, there's a trial date set for an sexual assault perpetrator, where 5 women have come forward to share their story, and many other cases that are still unprosecuted thus far. But I'll round out that at the end of the presentation of how we're bringing a solution here to these things. UVic, as very progressive, has the Anti-Violence Project, Let's Get Consensual campaigns, the Men's Circle, Anti-Violence Week. Royal Roads has a student-informed one-page policy that was updated last in November 2013 to address sexual assaults on their campus. So we have recruited the former VP of RRU to be on our communications director. He's worked at an executive level with universities addressing this issue and is working with us to do that. And UBC has been under assault by the CBC in some cases, with national broadcasts on the Fifth Estate stories of things that are happening on their campus around this issue. So this is a widespread issue, but it's also a very localized issue. And the key that we bring that's different that I want to present to you today is we want to address men in the subject matter around gender-based violence. We want to encourage young people. From our first presentation, when we were talking about the Aspirations film that's targeted towards youth, but we also want to address men and boys of multiple ages to engage in this subject matter and talk about it. And that's what we propose to do with the Men and Exploitation Project to strengthen the response to sexual assault on post-secondary campuses. We'd love to have your support.
Any questions? Councillor Plant.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome back. I'm looking at your budget statement form, and I have a lot of concern because it's well outside of anything you've ever done as far as the size, at least, from my limited knowledge of Fortress. I apologize for that statement. And I'm curious, in this day of diminishing funding, how you're going to get $116,000, even if a significant amount of it is in kind.
Well, based on last year's performance, I think we'd have to compare 2 notes, but our last budget for our film was $144,000. We ran off of a budget of $38,000 in liquid capital infrastructure and ended up having to shift and pivot, as you do as a startup business. We have only been established since 2014 as a registered organization. Lots of R&D before that, but we were able to gather about $250,000 of in-kind partnership for our project last year on a $38,000 budget. So 116 doesn't work, it's too much.
Is the long-term goal for Fortress to be a social agency that's funded through government grants, or how would you envision the Fortress?
We definitely want to have a social enterprising component to our work. We do believe strongly, as presented earlier, in a method of engaging through media production, and as you've heard from other presenters tonight, that media production has a significant revenue model to it. It's a risky industry, but it's the one that we'd be getting into, and creating entertainment content is what we intend to do, and we intend to sell that content and distribute that content vastly. Yes, risky because it's the entertainment industry, but we're well on our way to establishing ourselves in that space.
Okay, last question. It's getting late, so I acknowledge I may have missed it, but the keynote speakers, technical staff, protocol reform staff, as far as that, is this building towards a conference, a week-long seminar, or a series of events throughout the year?
You got it. The Men End Exploitation Program will look like 4 live streamed events from the university campuses. Our 3 local ones, RRU, UVic, in alignment with the Anti-Violence Week, and Camosun. And then we'll also head over to do one Men End Exploitation workshop in Vancouver at the University of British Columbia.
Great, thank you. Oh, when is that, please?
It will run all throughout the calendar year. So it'll start at UVic in September for Anti-Violence Week, and then it will run into the 2017 calendar year. So we'll be doing purchasing with some of the financing. If I could throw out some recommendations, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but we noticed that there was some additional matched fund budget area. I know you guys have a lot of money to navigate through here or try and figure out how you're going to divide it up, but we can come with some more match funds and things like that as well too.
I guess the last question, does this event happen if Saanich doesn't contribute $10,000?
I'll do everything in my power to make these events happen regardless. We do need support. There's no question about that. As you've already pointed out, there's a significant budget there, and we have to find and utilize ways to make that happen. So I won't say no to that.
Thank you.
Councillor Bryce, did I see your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may have missed it, but you're not a registered not-for-profit, but what is your governance model?
Our governance models, right now we're currently running under the Saanich Legacy Foundation in our proposal for becoming a registered charity is in process. So we do have it ready. We're just, we issue tax receipts through Saanich Legacy Foundation as a proprietor underneath them, right now currently. So as a project.
Can I have a little bit of clarification on who the we is?
We have a board of directors. It's a 5-person board of directors. We have an advisory council, and we have a large production team in our film production that spans North America.
Any other questions? Councillor Platinum.
Yeah, sorry, only because Councillor Bryce tweaked me on to thinking about it. Do the applicants, this question through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, do the applicants have to be a nonprofit society in order to be eligible for grants?
The policy, through the mayor to council plan, the policy states that for the community or social service operating grants are provided to nonprofit organizations needing assistance. So the policy does say nonprofit organizations.
So, while I appreciate you probably have never made a profit doing this work, by definition, I would suggest that you are not a nonprofit society.
We're registered as a nonprofit society under the BC Societies Act. However, we are not registered with CRA as a registered charity.
No, that's fine. So that triggers back to, I think, Councillor Bryce's governance model. You are a nonprofit society. Are you a member of the society? Are you a member of the board of the society?
I'm a founding member of the board of the society, yes.
And so you're still on it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Awesome, thanks.
Would you mind if I poured myself a glass of water?
We just talked past 11 o'clock. We need a motion for council to continue.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sanders, you're just scratching your head. Not opposed. Motion passes unanimously.
I'm just checking I am next in line, I think. My name is Jane Arnold, and I'm here on behalf of Me Too Suicide Prevention Education and Support. Even our legal name is Crisis Intervention and Public Information Society of Greater Victoria. I want to thank you, Mayor, councillors, and staff for taking the time to listen to all of us tonight. And I did want to also just mention before I get going specific to need, that I just wanted to applaud Saanich on the youth development strategy. It's great document, and I just wanted to express appreciation for everyone who's involved in it. Need to's focus is to engage with youth and young adults around issues of suicide, coping, and mental well-being. I think most of you are, based on our previous presentations, fairly familiar with the work we do, but I did just want to highlight some of the accomplishments from the last year. Our online emotional support, we provided 3,100 chats, which is a 30% increase from the previous year. We reached in our in-school suicide awareness presentations over 3,400 students. 1,350 of those were students in Saanich schools. We're in every middle and high school in all 3 districts except for 1 high school. And this year, in terms of the presentations we have booked and completed, we'll be exceeding last year's level of service in Saanich. In response to a request from quite a few people in the schools to have us go into the younger grades, we've done quite a bit of work, research and development to come up with a program that's developmentally appropriate. And it's unfortunate to see that request coming, because what it's talking about is people in the younger grades who are experiencing high degrees of stress, anxiety, and thoughts of suicide. But what we came up with and what we have piloted and are now working to slowly expand is a mindfulness for middle school project, where we do a program over 4 to 6 classes or classroom sessions in 1 a week, going into the pilot worked with grade 6 students. The results have been very positive, and we are getting a lot of word of mouth requests to extend that program. Youth Space, which is our online emotional support service, was open every night of the week, 6 to midnight, and because we were able to add another chat station, we were able to increase our capacity, which still did not quite meet demand, and that demand keeps growing. We know from reports, both local and national, that around 80% of youth report being happy, safe, supported, part of their communities most of the time. I think it's easy to forget that statistic, but what that statistic also means is that 1 in 4 aren't, and they're struggling. So all of our programs reach out to engage those youth, supporting them in the moment, providing positive coping skills, and connecting them to help and support. In schools, a number of youth are connected to school counselors as a result of our presentations. And online, youth come in to talk about suicide, self-injury, distress, anxiety, bullying, relationships. Suicide is not a comfortable topic. It's a topic many people avoid, but we know that talking about it helps. And what Me2 does in its work is it helps young folks talk about it and seek help when they need to. We use a volunteer model of service delivery. It's been a bit of a theme tonight, I notice. But it is the volunteers who go into the classrooms and who go and chat with youth online. So they provide the direct service, and what the organization and the staff works hard to do is to train, recruit, screen, train, and support and mentor those volunteers. And I just came across a very interesting piece of research that was just published in January of this year by someone who's well known and does very solid work, but sometimes as an organization, both when we had the phone lines and when we moved to the online emotional support, which is the same kind of work through the same kind of model, get challenged about having volunteers doing those kinds of work. And in fact, the evidence to date indicates that mental health professionals may be less effective in providing telephone help to suicidal individuals when compared to trained lay volunteers. And that's because those volunteers and the focus of the training is about being present in the moment, taking the time, and making connection. And I think connection is a theme that we all know resonates in our communities in general, and especially in our connection with youth. NEED has over 75 volunteers currently, and the overwhelming number of them are under the age of 30, and actively engaging and supporting others and strengthening the community. And the skills they learn and they use online moves with them to life. We train about an additional 50 volunteers a year. Even though we ask for a year commitment, people do stay on beyond that. Prior to 2010, Saanich supported NEED through an annual grant of more in the neighborhood of $20,000. We downsized, and you downsized the grant to us. The increase, request for the increase of 50% is made in that context. I think I would request that, given the demand on your resources, that we would like to reduce that request to $12,500, and hope that you're able to consider that increase in your deliberations. I think I overspoke, so my apologies.
That's all right. Any questions? See none? All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And thanks for
Next up is the Community Social Planning Council of Greater Victoria.
Hello again, Mr. Mayor, Council. First of all, I want to offer a mea culpa. The talk I gave earlier, I was supposed to give now. Sorry about that. I stepped all over my colleague Andrew's presentation back here, and all the questions, of course, were to him, but I feel badly. He had a couple of people here to speak to you as well. A prof from UVic who's supporting the project, and another person who's well acquainted with that issue. I won't bother going through that talk again, but I would like to see if there's any questions about the council and our proposal here today.
Any questions? Councilor Plant.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I'm trying to pour through, usually as you present someone, we usually look through the documents. Did you move out of the Royal Oak neighborhood that your office is based?
Yes, we did. We were able to get a place downtown, and we had to move out, so it was a matter of finances, and we were able to pull in another office downtown Victoria. So we're no longer sitting in Saanich. Yeah.
Too bad. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Brents.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just trying to get my numbers straight here. So, City Victoria 10,000, and then the CRD 30,000.
Sorry.
The
Yes.
CRD, and what access is that you have for the 30,000?
Sorry. What is it?
The 30,000 under what designation or what service do you achieve that?
From the CRD?
The CRD.
That's a good question, and I don't have the answer for it. My understanding, though, is we are talking to the CRD and all municipalities about the support for social planning generally and all the research projects and so on that we're undertaking. So it may be for a base grant, but I don't want to, I can't answer that question, I'm sorry.
And so the requests for grants, you've requested from the City of Victoria 10,000.
From?
Victoria, City of Victoria, 10,000.
Yes.
Yes. And you're requesting from Saanich 21,000?
Yes, I think so. I thought it was higher than that myself, but.
21.
Okay.
And from the City of Victoria 10.
Yeah.
Trying to
put
get
them
some
all
logic
together.
flowing here for myself.
Right. I'm afraid I stepped into this late in the game, and I don't have a picture of all of the other grants that we're looking at right now, other than we have been getting support, I think, for years from the various municipalities, and all of them are not for specific projects. They are for, some of them are for base funding for our organization.
Councillor Plant.
Yeah, thank you. In the same spirit that we've had previous applications have further contact with staff, I think now that you're not located in Saanich, not to say that the work was only for Saanich in the first place, I would want that further information about what the request is to the other municipalities and for my deliberations, because it does seem odd that we are being asked for double the amount of a municipality that is now probably an equal participant in what you're offering.
So I will get that information to you tomorrow. Yeah, I'll pull it in here for sure.
Fantastic, thank you.
Absolutely.
Councillor Haynes?
Yeah, when I look at the figures, it's actually 21 plus the previous 10, which were $31,000 asked to Saanich in your total.
Right, that's where that was coming from. Okay.
And total asked to
Yeah.
Saanich.
Yeah, which would be a third of us.
I'm lost there. Did you have previous presentations? Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right, thank you very much. Up next is Community Dialogue and Resolution Services.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I did bring some brochures and information about our organization if you'd like some more of them. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Kathleen Bellamano, and I'm the Executive Director. Sorry for the feedback. I'm the Executive